Welcome, wrestling fans. Welcome to Curtain Jerkin. As always, I'm your host, Jacob Grondy, reporting for the Main Event Marks YouTube channel and the Dragon Suplex Podcasting Network. It feels like it's been forever since I talked to you guys. I think I recorded this last week, or the last podcast last week, you know what I'm saying. And it feels like a lifetime has passed since in the wrestling world since I've talked to you guys. It's like a strange black cloud over wrestling. I mean, with Vince McMahon, I just found out about the allegations with AJ Gray to a lesser extent, to what happened with Jeff Hardy. It seems like things, the thing we all love as fans of wrestling has had a bad week. You never know, like, when non-wrestling fans are going to come up to you and ask you questions, but with this Vince McMahon thing and this Jeff Hardy thing, they all do. There could be a 5-star match with Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins in a Hell in a Cell, and everyone is, pretty much congratulating it within our community, but no one comes up to you outside until it's something like this, which is sad to say. Jeff Hardy breaks my heart, getting that DUI, going to a brain scan. It kind of hits close to home. Jeff Hardy is from North Carolina, lives, close to me. My dad was a wrestler when I was very young, and I saw Jeff Hardy wrestle when I was like 4 or 5 years old. So anytime he kind of gets into trouble, it hurts a little more than if another wrestler gets in trouble, and I have experience with seeing him get in trouble. So what can you do there? I think it also kind of fucked up what they were doing with AEW. We'll get to that a little later. This Vince McMahon thing is crazy. It's like, he got caught having an affair, which, it's shitty thing to do. But I think most wrestling fans probably assumed that already happened. And then all these allegations from all the way back in the 80s are coming out with former female employees. But the thing is if he didn't use corporate money or company money to pay their hush money, their settlements, then I think he's going to keep his job. I think his legacy is going to be somewhat intact. I mean, the large majority of wrestling fans probably don't probably assume that he was doing stuff like having an affair anyways, unfortunately. So, we're going to get to what happened on Smackdown in a little bit, but we also got to talk about Sasha Banks officially released from the WWE, along with Paige officially released from the WWE. I can see them both ending up in AEW eventually, but I personally don't want to see them end up in AEW. AEW is too full. Yes, they do have, some space up top, I guess you could say, as far as their women's division. But I think that could come from building women and not just hiring, like MJF said, not just hiring former WWE talent. I mean, Toni Storm, Ruby Soho, Athena, these people are all just kind of feel like not that big of a deal right now in AEW. And they were just hires, right as they could from the WWE on to AEW. I don't think either of them can really talk in the ring like Britt Baker can. And I think you need somebody to stand up to Britt Baker. You need a face to Britt Baker's heel to get this division going. You kind of had it with Thunder Rosa, but for some reason, as soon as Thunder Rosa won the title, kind of like Jurassic Express, kind of to a lesser extent Hangman Page, they really didn't know what to do with her. They don't seem to know what to do with her now that she has the title. So I think, yes, Sasha Banks or even Paige would be great because they know how to talk in the ring. They know how to talk in front of fans. They don't have to do backstage segments to kind of help push the storyline. But I also think that they signed too many people. They're going to have to wait, I would say, a year or two to kind of clean up the women's division, hopefully build some stars. I mean, they're doing an okay job with Chris Statlander. If they can get her off her feet, they're doing an okay job with the baddies. But I don't think you can cross them over to winning the world title anytime soon. But I also think it's too full. Like, if you bring in Sasha Banks or Paige right now, you're gonna bump off someone you just hired like Athena. You're gonna, Ruby Soho was hot shit like 10 months ago, and we barely see her now. So, I mean, I think that it would be smart for Sasha Banks and Paige not to sign to AEW. I mean, they got Twitch and Star Wars money coming. I don't think they need AEW. It would be fun to see them in something like Stardom, just as a fan's perspective, to see them have great matches over there, and that'd be kind of unique. It'd be fun to see them in a place like AAA. I think they could have a good match down in Mexico, and they could only, they'd only have to work 1 or 2 matches, and for Triple Mania or something. But I think going to AEW would be a mistake from these ladies. AEW has proven that you will get lost in the shuffle. But now let's kind of jump back to Vince McMahon talking about SmackDown. I know this is we're jumping all over the place here, but it was kind of a busy week here. It's a busy week for the world of pro wrestling. Mr. McMahon comes out to SmackDown. I was hyped for this. I was pretty interested in this the whole day. I was just listening to whoever would talk about Vince McMahon and showing up to SmackDown. Dave Meltzer, post wrestling, Brian Alvarez, the whole nine. Anyone who would talk about it, I would listen to it. And I finally tuned into SmackDown. I think I can't remember the last time I tuned into SmackDown, and they got me. They got all of us, I think. He comes out and says nothing. Welcomes Minnesota for coming to WWE, mentions the then, now, forever together thing, and says the most important thing is together, and then he just leaves. I cannot believe it. He did not say jack shit. But I already tuned in, jokes on me, and then they hooked me. I stayed for the Riddle Reigns match. I do think they could have booked this a little better, though. I think a lot of people probably did tune out after this Vince McMahon debacle. I think they went to Riddle promo, but I think right after the Riddle promo, they should have done a Reigns promo out there in front of the crowd, and then done the match, and then hopefully right at the 9 o'clock hour had Brock Lesnar come out. And I think they could have gotten a better rating there. That second hour would have died a slow death with what they had going on with Baron Corbin and Madcap Moss and the ladies wrestling and everything like that. But I do think that people would have stayed if they just went right into the main match on the show, the main event, and by drawing it out with a Riddle promo, with a Paul Heyman promo, with a few commercial breaks, and then going in to the match. I think that could have taken up an hour of the show, and then had Brock Lesnar come out right at that 9 o'clock hour, and then people would have probably stayed. Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns, I think I've heard on another podcast, this is like the 10th match they've had in the last few years. I only watch the big shows in WWE, so I'm hooked. I mean, I watched Royal Rumble where they hyped up the Mania match. I watched the Saudi show in between. Then I watched the Mania match. So, I mean, I've only seen a few shows with these guys, so this is the storyline I want to see in the WWE. I am, I guess, a big pro wrestling fan, a casual WWE fan, and I want to see Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. This is the match I'd want to see at SummerSlam. The match that they said before that they said this was Randy Orton versus Roman Reigns, and I think that match would have gotten just as much criticism and been boring. I think Brock Lesnar matches are way more exciting than Randy Orton matches. So if you look at the logical other option, this is the best option. But going back to McMahon here, I mean, he just said kind of jack shit, but I think he just wanted to come out and have the drug of the crowd cheering for him. I mean, you or I, if we had a bad day at work, we might come home and crack a beer. We might go sit out on the porch, just relax a little bit. We would do something to take the load off. And for him, since he runs WWE, he can get the drug of thousands of people cheering for him. And I think, honestly, if we're looking at the person, I think he just wanted that drug. I think he was like, I have had a really bad day. I'm probably going to get a divorce. I might lose my company. Like, his world is crumbling around him, so to speak. So he did the only thing he could, and he took a load off. He came out and got his favorite drug, the roar of the crowd. And the body of what he was going to say was probably an afterthought after hearing that rush and getting that rating and knowing that he can still pop a rating and get people talking. I think that's probably the actual reason he went out there, more so than anything else. And as much as I can't relate to Vince McMahon, I can kind of relate to having a bad day and wanting to take a load off a little bit in a strange way. The Jeff Hardy thing, the Sasha Banks getting released, Vince McMahon coming out, you kind of forget that there was, in-ring competition. I do think that the outside stuff going on overshadowed a lot of the stuff in ring in the world of wrestling this week, and that's a shame, especially this weekend in Japan. We had New Japan Dominion. They announced the G1 entrance for 2022. My mark ass thought there was going to be Danielson and Go Shiozaki in it. I was disappointed, but the list was good. Okada, Will Osprey, Tom Otanga, Hanare. And once I heard Hanare, I thought maybe my hopes are a little too high for this G1. Because if Hanare is getting a spot, that means, they didn't have to make room for anybody, if you know what I'm saying. Then you got Tana Hoshi, Shingo, Tom Lawler. I thought this was a good pick here, legitimizing New Japan Pro Wrestling strong, and he does have a little bit of that crossover appeal from his time in UFC still, so I thought this was a good one. Tom Lawler, first G1 here. Sonata, Jonah, good pick here. Naito, Jay White, Goto, Yano, Yoshihashi, Yujiro. And when I heard these names, I was shocked. I cannot believe that these guys are still in the G1. They've got partnerships with companies all over the world. They worked with Noah this year. They worked with AEW this year. And here they are still presenting Yujiro in the G1. I cannot believe it. I cannot believe this. Kenta, Ishii, Jeff Cobb, Bad Luck Fale, Great-O-Khan, Chase Owens, Juice Robinson, Tai Chi, Zack Sabre Jr., David Finlay. Took him like 10 years, but he finally made the G1. If I hadn't heard Hanare and I hadn't heard Yoshihashi and Yujiro, then I would be pretty happy with this. I'd be, this feel-good story. But I feel like there's like 3 or 4 feel-good stories here. And once they said David Finlay, I knew that my hopes were too high, and I wasn't going to get maybe the G1 that I thought could have been, could have happened, feasibly could have happened. But then they announced Lance Archer, which was pretty cool, AEW representation here. But he had been in the G1 before. So, I think maybe from a New Japan perspective, that's a guy that you trust to be in such a G1, because you got to figure that he's wrestling 20 matches in like 30 days. They're going to be, New Japan Pro Wrestling main event quality matches. So you got to have someone you trust in there. You got to have someone that won't break down. So the big man Lance Archer, AEW's not really using him too much, so it feels like a safe pick from the two companies at hand's perspective. But it doesn't excite me as much as maybe 15 other people they could have picked from AEW. But I mean, he's going to kill it. Don't forget about his 2019 breakout performance in the G1. He kind of was just an afterthought in New Japan when New Japan was blowing up with the Bullet Club and everything. He was just kind of a tag guy. And then all of a sudden, Harry Smith left New Japan. He was on his own, and it looked like he came to the G1 to make a statement in 2019. And he had that great match with Will Osprey in Dallas, Texas. And I think that kind of revamped his career to the point where that's what got him signed to AEW. And then El Phantasmo, that's pretty cool to see this. He wouldn't have been my choice for the junior, to bring up the junior. I would have brought up El Desperado, but LP's a nice choice. He has, ridiculously funny promos, and he can go in the ring, so it kind of makes sense to bring him on up. And he's tall, so if, like Will Osprey, if he puts on, some muscle mass, he can definitely be a heavyweight, no problem. So overall, not a bad G1 tournament, but yeah, like I said, my hopes were too high. I thought, they're partnering with AEW. I'm thinking Danielson's come over. They partnered with Noah earlier in the year. I'm thinking someone from Noah's coming over. I'm thinking someone from maybe DDT is coming over. And, I mean, nothing like that happened. Waking up early in the summertime, having some coffee, watching the sun come up, and watching some amazing, amazing matches, though, that's going to happen. I'm glad that it's back in the summertime. The G1 season is, my equivalent to like going to the Warped Tour nowadays. When I was a teenager, the summertime, that's what I looked forward to, was the day I could go and see like all these amazing bands and hang out with my friends and then go home. And it was something that not a lot of people really got or understood. And I feel like that's what the G1 is for me now in my life. It's this thing that I look forward to that happens every summer. And not really, people don't really get it, but I get really, really excited for it. To the point where, I mean, I look more fondly to the G1 than I do like Christmas, to be honest with you guys. So we're going to be probably breaking down all these matches, giving you a list of my top 10 matches to check out in the G1. But, let's kind of go into what I thought of Dominion. This is the second biggest show from New Japan annually. I won't really say their SummerSlam. I feel like the G1 is their SummerSlam, but this is kind of like maybe like their Money in their Bank. Maybe I can't really put a finger on it, but it's like, yeah, like I would put like Wrestle Kingdom, G1, and then Dominion right there, number 3, a close number 3. I'm not going to review all the matches, a lot of the tag matches in the early going, multi-man matches. They're fun little matches, but they could happen on any card. I'm going to jump into the Dominion caliber matches. I will say Fale and Owens, the champions, versus Cobb and Okan. This was the first defense of Chase Owens and Fale. Okan took down Fale, a big gasp from the crowd, and they bleeped it out. You can still not speak in public in Japan because of COVID. Everyone not only wears a mask, but they also want everyone to be quiet in Japan to stop the spitting from leaving your mouth at all. So they bleeped an actual genuine reaction from a wrestling show, which I thought was crazy. I mean, here you have all these wrestling companies getting caught for piping in crowds, like Impact over the years, and WWE does it constantly every week. And here's a genuine reaction, and the place has to bleep it out. I thought that was insane. That was my big takeaway from this match. Cobb and Okan win the titles. Two-time champions. Chase Owens' short-lived tag title run was glorious here. It took him forever to win a championship in New Japan. He stayed over in Japan during the pandemic over these uncertain times, and it paid off for him. He had that great series of matches. Well, not great, a fun series of matches with Yano for the King of Pro Wrestling trophy, and then he won the tag title with his longtime friend Bad Luck Fale. I don't know why they took the titles off of Cobb and Okan, but they did, and the Cinderella story of Chase Owens' tag title run has come to an end, but it will be remembered in our hearts for years. Tana Hoshi versus Goto. Everyone who is paying attention knew Tana Hoshi was going to win this match. The winner of this match faces Jon Moxley for the interim AEW championship, but they already kind of announced that they wanted Tana Hoshi to wrestle Punk for the not interim title, I guess you would say. So you kind of knew that Tana Hoshi was already booked to go over there. But just like a city skyline on a road trip, you see it coming from miles away. But when you get there, you are still excited. This match was great. Tana Hoshi wins. Go Ace. And Goto continues to be a slightly underrated. I would say like his whole career, he was upper tier mid card. I remember 2014, 2015, he was the guy who couldn't win the big one. And people got behind because he might do it one day. And now, people don't talk about that at all. People know he's not going to win the big one. He's, might have a tag title run left in him. Probably will win the six-man titles at some point with some people. But he's definitely kind of dropped. I thought that he might have been a guy that might not be in the G1 to fill in for some of these outsiders, but it didn't look like that. Not this year, at least. Tai Chi versus Shingo. I thought this match was pretty cool. It was a fun little gimmick match. It's where you have to accumulate the most points in a 10-minute time period, and you get points by moments pinned. So, like, if you get a 2 count, and then you try to pin him again, you get another 2 count, that's 4 points. And so it naturally and organically made it make sense for this match to have a quicker pace than most New Japan matches. So I thought this was a fun concept, kind of to like wake up the crowd a little bit. Shingo won 11-6, so he got like 11 minutes accumulative seconds pinned. But it's kind of cool because you want to see another match now because you didn't see somebody get the 3 count. You saw a lot of 2 counts, but you didn't see anyone get the 3 count. So not only was it a fun match that picked up the pace, woke up the crowd a little bit, but now you want to see more of it. So I thought this was a great gimmick match. A gimmick match that's not too goofy and convoluted. And that's a rare thing to see. A new gimmick match that's not goofy or convoluted. Hats off to you guys. Pretty cool to see that. Then we have Carl Anderson versus Tom Otanga for the Never title. They're really trying to push Tom Otanga as a single star. It might be a little too late, especially if you're going to take the title off of him like they did right here and put it on another guy who's known for being in a tag team. Like Carl Anderson, he won with the stun gun. I never thought I would see the day where the Never Championship is lower than the IWGP US Championship. The Never title used to be kind of like the workhorse title. Guys like Shibata, guys like Ishii would hold this title, and you knew that was going to be kind of like the Steamboat Savage of Wrestle Kingdom every year. And then it kind of started going on people like Evil, and Evil really couldn't live up to those caliber matches. He was more of a character-driven wrestler, and as that was happening, people that would get the U.S. title, like Juice Robinson, and I'm blanking on people, but pretty much I'm thinking about the Juice Robinson reign. They thought, like, this is my chance to hold a title in New Japan. So they would go out there and act like they were in the main event. And now you're trying to move over to America, so you have that U.S. title. That can be your main title kind of over in America. And it looks like the U.S. champion is above the Never champion. I never thought I would see the day. Carl Anderson, nonetheless, holding the Never championship right now. Osprey versus Sonata for the U.S. title. I love the spot where Osprey went for an Oscutter, but Sonata countered into a skull-in, but then couldn't lock it in. Osprey wins with the Stormbreaker. We will talk more about Osprey a bit later. And then in the main event, Okada versus Jy. This is what's known as an Okada epic, where it starts out real slow and builds to about a 30 to 45 minute match. This one went 35 minutes. Tombstone, spinning Rainmaker, Okada feeling it, but then out of nowhere, the Blade Runner. 1, 2, 3. Jay White gets the victory. I was shocked, especially since Adam Page had already called out Okada on Dynamite. I thought that was kind of a foregone conclusion. We were going to get Okada and Hangman Page for the IWGP title. We'll get into all of that because we do have to talk about Jay White's 2 epic promos here. In the ring, Bullet Club comes out. They're all standing tall. he's pretty much calls out Adam Page for calling out Okada, calling him a stupid cowboy bitch, goes to the back and cuts another great promo. Switchblade is the most underrated guy on the mic today. I will say it. He is kind of jumped Omega to like be the leader of Bullet Club a few years ago. And he brings that up again, saying that if he didn't jump Omega out of Bullet Club, there wouldn't be an AEW as we know it today. So he's pretty much taking credit for AEW in this weird, convoluted heel logic. I thought it was a great promo. I thought Dominion was a great show, but arguably wasn't the biggest show in Japan this week. That's rare for New Japan not to be the biggest show in New Japan this week if they were having a show. I would say Cyber Fight is probably a bigger show. This was awesome. The pageantry, the spectacle of the final few matches, rival WrestleMania, rival Wrestle Kingdom. Cyber Fight, if you don't know, is put on by a company called Cyber Agent, which is the biggest company that I guess deals with pro wrestling in the world. Bigger than WWE. It's a corporation that has 3 wrestling companies under their umbrella: Noah, TJP, and DDT. And you could say that I would say that Noah, I would say DDT is like the second biggest promotion in Japan. Noah is a close second, and I would put Tokyo Joshi Pro maybe the second biggest women's promotion in Japan under Stardom. I'm just going to jump to the matches that I found interesting. There was a lot of mixed multi-man and mixed tag matches in the early going. The show was like 6 hours long, so there was some filler matches in there. But some of the matches I found interesting: one Segura, Fujita, Kitamiya, and Inabe, and Taniguchi. Sorry, I'm butchering these names, but these guys are all great. I do watch Noah, as you guys know from listening to this, but I still have a problem with some of these names. But they kind of represented the old guard of Noah, the old guard of Japanese wrestling, versus the newish foreign wrestlers, Michael Elgin, Hijo Dr. Wagner Jr., Rene Dupree, Simon Gotch, Timothy Thatcher. Crazy list of names right there. They brought up that Rene Dupree won the WWE Tag title when he was 19 years old. Take that, Nick Wayne. He's winning titles. You only have 3 years to catch up to that. Fujita and Thatcher went off right here. That's like low-key a dream match that we could maybe see possibly in Noah. The ever-controversial Mike Elgin, though, does get the victory with the Elgin Bomb. 1, 2, 3. But, I mean, you look at these 10 guys and you're thinking, like, Noah, they've got the in-ring down. All these guys can go. Even Rene Dupree, I mean, he kind of is like seen as a joke, I would say, over here in America. He's a bigger guy, and he's been wrestling I think it's like 15 years now, and he had his run in WWE. That was years ago. But I think he still works hard, and I think he looks completely different than when he did in WWE. We also had another 8-man tag. This was like a DDT tag. Hiroshima. I don't watch DDT, so hopefully I'm not saying these names too incorrectly. Hiroshima, Yoshimura, Chris Brooks, Takanashi versus Ueno, Kadamasato, Mayo, and Asuka. No, not that Asuka. A different Asuka. This Asuka's 23 years old. It was also cool to see Chris Brooks here. He kind of broke out of the UK scene in like the late 2010s, like 2018, much like Osprey and Zack Sabre Jr. did, but he went to DDT, a company that doesn't get a lot of attention over here in America, so it's cool to see him on this large of a scale. Asuka, the other Asuka killed it, and the first team, Chris Brooks' team, gets the victory here. And we also had another match, Rob Van Dam, Agawe, and Hayata versus Kitamiya, Dasaki Harada, and Yohei. Of course, Rob Van Dam. Yes, that Rob Van Dam always will be cool to me to see because he was cool when I was young. If you were cool when people are young, they're gonna like you their whole life. It's kind of how nostalgia works. And he played the hits here to this crowd. The crowd seemed to be into it. 5-star frog splash, you gotta love it. And that's this after RVD came out. That's kind of where the big fight feel ramped up. They had Noah versus DDT, Indo, Yakamishi, and Higuchi versus Nakajima, Kodeji, and Yoshiki Inamure. I am completely sorry that I'm butchering that. Hopefully these guys are listening to this so they can be insulted. That'd be kind of cool if they're listening. Not that not cool to insult them, but it'd be cool if they were listening. But mainly, this was when the pageantry jumped up. They're both coming up literally carrying their company's flags here. Epic fight feel, and then all of a sudden, Nakajima just bitch slaps Indo incredibly hard, like we're used to seeing with Nakajima, and it just rocks him. He falls to the ground. He obviously concussed, knocked out. They have to call the match early. This made Nakajima kind of look badass, but I hope everyone's okay. It kind of reminded everybody that these hard shots, these snug shots, these stiff shots that we see in Noah and all over Japanese wrestling are real. There's a reason they don't do it anywhere else in the world that aggressively, because, it could go wrong pretty quick. It did leave a lot to be desired in this match. I hope they can maybe, all these guys work under the same conglomerate. Maybe they can redo this match on a smaller show. But, man, this was wild to see. And then when I checked Twitter, this is what all people were talking about. Some people were very insensitive to the injury, but this was, a moment that people were talking about. Of course, they were talking about RVD and everything like that, but they were definitely bringing up the Nakajima bitch slap heard around the world. And then we went on to Kino versus Dasaki Sosa. This had kind of a WWE level video package hyping it up. The entrances were awesome. Kino comes out looking like Super Saiyan right here. He usually has the Beatles bangs, but here he had like the Goku like gelled up hair. Pretty wild to see. And this match was nuts. It was like a GCW match held in Wrestle Kingdom. Dasaki, a bit of an outlaw, Mud Show superstar, I guess you would say, and Kino, a bit of more of a traditional wrestler. So the whole storyline of the match was he was trying to get in Kino's head by bringing up things like the blow-up doll, throwing a blow-up doll at him. I think the blow-up doll is a legitimate wrestler in DDT. I can't, this sounds ridiculous to mention, but I think, that's the same, in storyline, the same blow-up doll that Ibushi wrestled, that Joey Janela wrestled in a ladder match in GCW. Just ridiculous shit here. They get a bike helmet at one point. They set up a table, chairs. It's pretty much a hardcore match. Someone starts at the top of the ramp and bicycles down the ramp and hits Dasaki, with the bike. Dasaki jumps from the turnbuckle over the rail, over a table onto Kino at one point. That was just impressive to see. This match felt, just like kind of like a GCW match at a Wrestle Kingdom. I can't say that too much. I couldn't believe what I was seeing here. It was in front of a lot of people, and it was just like the things that you would see in front of hundreds of people, in New Jersey or something. Dasaki does a really sloppy spot off a ladder, doesn't go well. Kino goes up and hits the double stomp. 1, 2, 3. Kino gets the victory. It was what it was. It kind of, I was still thinking about the bitch slap heard around the world this entire match, but for what they wanted to do, they did it well, especially with that video package. Nakajima and Yuki Sakazaki, both ladies that we've seen in AEW now for the Princess of Princesses title. This match was probably one of the better matches on the show. These entrances were beyond WrestleMania worthy, I would say. This was the Tokyo Joshi Pro Wrestling main event, an all-women's promotion. And the caliber, the spectacle that they put in to these entrances, I don't think, I mean, The Undertaker could top it, I would say, but this year's WrestleMania, I didn't see anyone that topped the pageantry of these entrances. Beyond WrestleMania here. Nakajima dives, takes out a plethora of cute Japanese girls that make up the Tokyo Joshi Pro Wrestling locker room here. Sakazaki hits a tope 450. She's stalling on the actual rope, not the turnbuckle here. I thought that was pretty cool. Just a good, fun match. Nakajima wins. She gets a big check at the end. And then we go in to the main event. Kojima. Yes, that Kojima from New Japan Pro Wrestling gets brought over here to wrestle Go Shiozaki. Go Shiozaki is the champion, but he's more or less the interim champion right here because he won it because Fujita, the champion before that, caught COVID. So he won a match, so he's pretty much a placeholder, unfortunately. He's my favorite in Noah, but he does seem like a bit of a placeholder here. Kojima, yeah, like I said, from New Japan, comes over to Cyberfight. Looks like a bigger deal than he ever did in the past 10 years in New Japan. Both of these guys work snug as fuck, especially Go, chopping hard as hell, not knocking anybody out like Nakajima. Moonsault, no one home. Kojima gets up, hits a lariat, 1, 2, 3, and Kojima is the GHC heavyweight champion. In the main event, he wins a big check just like Sakazaki. I can't believe it. This shows you that it is all about the booking here. Kojima, he was done with the G1. I think he hadn't been in the G1 in 3 or 4 years now. He comes over to Noah, and he's one of the biggest stars in the company. Another big star in the world of Japanese pro wrestling, in the world of wrestling, Muta, he comes out during this show, and he says that he's got 1 year left. He's going to retire in a year, in 2023, and I think he said he also has 5 more matches. So, I mean, line up the dream matches now. A guy that was wrestling, in the NWA, in WCW, all over the world for decades and decades. Had that historic GHC title run last year, is retiring in 2023. I know he wrestled in the 80s, so 80s, 90s, 2010s, or 2000s, 2010s, and now the 2020s. So this is his 5th decade in the world of wrestling. He was in the original NWO. The accolades can go on and on and on, but he's retiring. That's probably the biggest news of the show. But you only have 5 matches here, so these got to be big dream matches. Hopefully, I think if he can put over a young guy in one of those matches, that will be a victory for Noah. But I don't see that way. Noah likes their older guys. Like look at Kojima revamping his career. He's seen as an older guy in New Japan. He comes to Noah, he gets the title put on him. Fujita, his days in Pride were glorious, but those were decades ago. He held the title this year in Noah. So they like their older guys. I can see him just wrestling exclusively older guys to pop the Japanese crowd, and then him bowing out gracefully. We're going to be talking about this on Curtain Jerkin. This is a big show here, guys, because now we're going to go into AEW. I loved Cyberfight. I loved Dominion. AEW is slipping. They're slipping. I am pretty excited for the Forbidden Door show, but things are getting convoluted here. Things are getting, pretty weird, especially if you don't watch New Japan. I feel for those guys who are just AEW fans and they don't watch New Japan here. They're constantly confused, and I don't blame them. I watch both shows and I'm confused. Mox versus Tana Hoshi face-to-face here. They had Tana Hoshi come out in just like kind of a suit, where that means so if you, like I'm saying, if you're not watching New Japan, you just see some older Japanese guy standing there in a suit with bleach blonde hair. You don't know why this guy's a big deal. I think in order to have him come across, you got to have him full gear ready. Because if he comes out with the jacket, with the vest, with the Go Ace playing, I think he would come off like a star. Because I do think the gear in Japan is typically better than the gear in America. So I think if you had these guys wearing their gear, people would at least be impressed by their overall presentation. But no, they have him coming out just in some suit, and then they have Jericho interrupt it, and then members of Jericho Appreciation Society jump Tana Hoshi and Moxley, but then also, for whatever reason, members of Suzuki Gun, Lance Archer, kind of a member of Suzuki Gun, a former member of Suzuki Gun, and El Desperado, this guy who's had a breakthrough career in the last few years. I don't know, like he was kind of just chilling in New Japan for a while, and then all of a sudden he just had a great series of matches in the Best of the Super Juniors, like 2 or 3 years ago, like right before the pandemic. I want to say 2019, and then he's had great matches with Hiromu Takahashi. Just comes out, a big appearance in America, rare appearance in America, just to be a part of a group of 5 or 6 guys that don't really belong with each other, to jump 2 guys because he got hired by a guy. Like, it just seems, it's just all convoluted bullshit. And he was wearing this big t-shirt. It's like, I don't know, man. So it's this guy in a big t-shirt called El Desperado from Japan. Like, you got to take time to explain this shit to people. Or you could go the UFC route and just announce matches, and then people could look into it themselves. But trying to put a storyline to all this, and also you had El Desperado, one of the best wrestlers in the world, just out there, and you didn't give him a match at this series of tapings. You're telling me that Willow Nightingale had, a match, and then El Desperado was just sitting in the back in catering? It's ridiculous. They're dropping the ball with this Forbidden Door thing, and I can't believe I would ever say something like that. There's tons of backstage politics at play. People from AAA can't wrestle on the New Japan show, and Andrade says that it's AAA and CMLL that will make them not wrestle on the New Japan show. Conan said on Keep It 100, it's New Japan that won't let guys from AAA and CMLL wrestle on the Forbidden Door show. So whatever it is, backstage politics is playing a hand at this. Hangman Page comes out, kind of makes fun of the fact that he called out Okada, but then Jay White has the title now. Adam Cole, for some reason, shows up, says that he's going to wrestle Jay White, and then Jay White shows up, attacks Hangman, and then disappoints Adam Cole, saying that he's not going to wrestle Cole or Hangman. Maybe it'll be a triple threat match. I don't know, but this is convoluted. This is crazy. You could have just announced the matches that you're going to have on this show and not have all this convoluted craziness. And we do get a match announced on the show: Will Osprey versus Orange Cassidy. Out of all the combinations of wrestlers that you could pair with Will Osprey that come from AEW, I would say that Orange Cassidy is not in my top 10. The crowd will probably like it there, but this is going to be a comedy match where you could have had, a classic match, especially using Will Osprey. I mean, Pac, Miro, Scorpio Sky. Those are just names that I'm just coming up with the top of my head that would kill it with Will Osprey. But there was a good angle on AEW Dynamite this week, and that was Christian Cage attacking Jungle Boy. And that was an AEW planned thing. So I'm thinking that, going all the way back to ECW in WWF, whenever you get 2 companies working together, it might not be for the best. I mean, look at Wrestle Kingdom Night 3 this year, where they did Noah versus New Japan. That was a ton of forgettable matches because of backstage politics, and now they're doing AEW versus New Japan, and it's kind of getting watered down and convoluted. And looking at what's been coming out, it seems that it's because of backstage politics. They don't know what to do because they don't know what the other company's going to do, and the other company doesn't want to tell them what to do because then it might leak out what they're going to do and ruin their show. And plus, they might have actual beef with other companies where that company works for. See, it's getting complicated, me just trying to explain it. But going back to Christian Cage versus Jungle Boy, this was kind of like that Tana Hoshi match. We see the skyline from miles away, but when we get into the city, it's still amazing. We knew Christian Cage was going to turn on Jungle Boy, and he did, right in front of his family, the cold-hearted bastard that Christian is. Hopefully this means Jungle Boy is kind of going on a singles run, kind of leaving Luchasaurus. Kind of maybe we'll see Luchasaurus show up less and less, and get pushed away by kind of like Marco Stunt. And we can start seeing Jungle Boy in the TNT title hunt and things like that. And Christian is going to hopefully be used properly since the first time, since like last year when he won the Impact title. Christian Cage has just been coming out as Jungle Boy's lackey for months, and hopefully this pays off here. I want to see a great match with Christian Cage and Jungle Boy. Will it be at Forbidden Door, though? That's kind of a waste of a match at Forbidden Door. I don't know where they're going with this. We're going to have to see. But jumping into the AEW matches from worst to first this week. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 big matches. And then number 10, we got Max Caster and the Gun Club versus Bear Country and Leon Ruff. This match was all freestyle, all entrance. Ass Boy Austin hits a frog splash 1, 2, 3. They get the victory. Wardlow versus 20 security guards. Wardlow just destroys these guys. Some of the guys got pinned when they were laying on their belly and not their back. But it was still fun. I mean, it was kind of like zombie mode on the old Call of Duty games. He was just destroying these guys that kept running at him. I enjoyed watching this match here. And then it was cool to see Matt Hughes and Tyrone Woodley appear on AEW. Lambert kind of tried to get them to attack Wardlow, but Wardlow was, hey guys, we're cool, right? And they're like, yeah, we're cool. That was it. It was kind of it. I mean, we've already seen Tyrone Woodley get laid up by Jake Paul. I'm sure Wardlow could lay him out. Number 8 out of 10, Jade versus Willow Nightingale. Willow Nightingale, she seems to mess up a lot. To the point where Mercedes Martinez was openly pissed, yelling at her mid-match at ROH Final Battle. After she kind of fell on her face trying to do a moonsault. I watch a lot of Beyond Wrestling. She doesn't really impress me there. But the crowd is into her. She's got a good look. She's got a good character. So I kind of try to turn off my Cornette dialogue here and just turn on my fan dialogue here. But I have to make a mental note to do that every time I see Willow Nightingale out there. Jade makes short work of her. Hogan and Jade attack her after the bell. Athena comes out. Doesn't get the job done. They just start attacking Athena. And then Chris Statlander runs out. And as she's running, she just smacks the back of Stokely Hathaway's head. That cracked me up. Stokely Hathaway sold it like $1 million. And Chris Statlander chases away the baddies. But Athena here doesn't get the job done. She seems like an afterthought after 2 weeks of appearing in AEW Dynamite. I mean, I would push Statlander too, but in that case, why bring in Athena at all? Why not, this could have been a Ruby Soho here. This could have been someone else that comes out and doesn't get the job done and to promote Statlander. Why did they sign Athena? Number 7, Miro versus Paige. This was for the tournament they're doing, the international tournament. Both men going after each other's arm here. Solid, quick match. Miro wins with the game over. Storm versus Baker. Tony Storm versus Britt Baker. Hater and Rebel kind of luring at ringside, making their presence known. Rebel trying to give Britt Baker the glove, but it backfires. Nasty German suplex, and eventually Storm beats the former champ with a Storm Zero. Moxley versus Dante Martin at number 5. Dante came after Mox pretty aggressively in this match, but Mox had to roll to the outside to regroup. Eventually brings Dante to the outside, running him into the steps, locking in a cloverleaf, and then Mox kind of locks in a hammerlock, but then falls backwards and kind of turns it into a bit of an STF. Dante Martin taps out. Number 4, Jericho versus Ortiz, the hair versus hair match. This is a great match here. Jericho suplexed Ortiz off the apron. Codebreaker 1-2. Ortiz kicks out. Walls of Jericho. Ortiz gets to the ropes. Brawling on the outside. All hell breaks loose. Aubrey Edwards is distracted. Kingston comes in with a spinning back fist to Jericho. 1-2. Jericho kicks out. Fuego del Sol shows up. Hits Ortiz with a bat. 1, 2, 3. It's revealed that it's not Fuego. It's Sammy Guevara stealing a trick from Jericho's playbook to give Jericho the victory. You gotta love it, because all along Sammy Guevara just kind of separated himself from the storyline with Santana Ortiz versus Jericho. He said, you guys gotta work it out, but that was all, it seemed like, a ploy for him to come back and help Jericho here. I thought this was really good booking here and a fun match. Looking back, I should have ranked it a little higher here. And we had Fish versus Darby. Bobby Fish here, old school heel, just kind of attacking Darby Allin, throwing him into the rail, jaw-jacking with fans, old and young. Darby, after getting assaulted for the whole match, kind of rolls up Bobby Fish and steals the victory. Bobby Fish jumps Darby after the match. Kyle O'Reilly comes down with the chair. They're going to try to hurt Darby Allin, but then lights go out. Sting appears. He attacks Red Dragon. I can't believe I just said that. Yeah, Sting attacks Red Dragon. The wrestling of my childhood is going after the wrestling of my adulthood, and you gotta love it, AEW, for that. I know I've been shitting on AEW a lot this show, but that is a really cool element of AEW that you really don't get anywhere else in the wrestling world. Dax Hardwood versus Will Osprey. Snug chops from Hardwood. Hardwood lands some Germans. Dax misses a flying headbutt. Osprey comes off the top. Neither man can put the other one away. Slingshot Liger Bomb 1-2. Osprey kicks out. Strike battle. Liger Bomb 1-2. Dax kicks out. Hidden Blade. Boom. 1, 2, 3. Will Osprey gets the victory, but that's number 2. Number 1 is Jurassic Express versus the Bucks. This was a spectacle of a match. It did not reinvent the ladder match wheel, but it's a Firestone. It's a Michelin. It's a great ladder match wheel, if you know what I'm saying. Nick bleeding, Bucks winning. I can't help but to think that this was the Hardy Boys title to win in this match if Jeff didn't fuck up. But, the Bucks, they're kind of like, they said that the Bucks were the 2-time tag champions, and that's the first time that anyone's been the 2-time tag champions in AEW. But in my mind, I thought they were like 3 or 4-time tag champions. It just feels right to have the AEW tag titles on the Bucks, knowing what we know about how they started this company. And like, it was kind of like their success in like getting into Hot Topic, and their success in Ring of Honor, bringing up Ring of Honor to new heights. That kind of showed people like Tony Khan, that kind of showed TNT, that showed people with big money that there could be another wrestling company out there. And so, like, the Bucks' success is kind of like the story of AEW. So it just feels right for them to have the tag title. I've been talking forever, it seems. I appreciate you guys listening. Fly high. I'm out.